On today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast, we are going to be joined by the Detroit News Detroit Pistons beat writer Mike Curtis to talk all things Pistons. Stay tuned for today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Johnson with 1 second to go.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kook Cahill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kook Cahill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, obviously, and hit that subscribe button. Or you can leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, last podcast, we had my friend Sham on to talk about, he's in the medical field. He explained to us everything we need to know about Cade's injury, the reason to get surgery, et cetera, et cetera. We went through all of that on the last episode, and it just so happened that episode dropped the same day that the Pistons had one of their most fun, I think possibly the most fun game of the year. So to open up, obviously, I'm going to introduce you guys to Mike Curtis, the Detroit Pistons beat writer for the Detroit News. You guys will probably know that he is the one who has taken over Rod Beard, who is a good friend of the show. Mike, how you doing, man? Appreciate you coming on.
Good, man. Thanks a lot for having me. It's always good to come on here and talk sports.
Absolutely, man. All right, so we're going to start off with the game yesterday against the Charlotte Hornets, which everybody, just real quickly, this is me and Mike's first time interacting here. I've spoken with him a little bit on Twitter. You guys know that I have a good relationship with Omari. Me and James have recorded a few times. I have a really good relationship with Rod, but this is Mike's first year, so hopefully we see Mike on the podcast a little bit more in the future. But anyways, let's get into the game yesterday. Mike, I know you guys aren't fans of the Detroit Pistons, obviously. You guys cover the team. You can't be fans. But I have to assume you guys are fans of basketball, or you guys wouldn't be in this. Like, you guys like watching fun basketball. Would you agree that last night was? Where would you put that as, like, in like, ranking fun games that you've had to cover this year for the Pistons?
I think if you like offense, last night's game was probably the best of the season for you. You had what was it? 6 different guys scoring double figures. 3 different guys over 24 points, led by Alec Burks. Then also you had Bojan Bogdanovic. You had Killian Hayes with probably his best performance of the season. He just looked extremely comfortable out there with his shot. And I think it was a really good game as far as a confidence booster for him. And also when you have a guy like Alec Burks who can pretty much come in and just drop 25 on you on any given night. That's a pretty good luxury to have for the Pistons.
Well, obviously, I thought it was a really fun game. I thought I had the most fun watching this game than any game during the season. And obviously because of all the offense, the score was 141 to 134 into overtime. Like that's a lot of points. And I feel like it was a lot of tough shot making. Like there were some open shots, but there was a lot of tough shot making, not just by the Pistons, but by the Hornets too. I feel like both teams put on a really good display of making shots and just difficult shots. LaMelo had a few shots. I was just like, bro, what the hell is he shooting? Like they were just like some really, really fun shots, fun games. You saw some really nice passes from Killian. You saw some really nice passes from LaMelo. LaMelo had a no-look left-handed swing pass from the skip corner pass. It was just some crazy stuff happening in this game. You kind of touched on it a little bit. Killian Hayes, I feel like we've said this probably like 3 or 4 times over the past 2 weeks, with arguably his best game of the year. That's like the 3rd or 4th time I've said that now in like the last 2 weeks. Your obviously your peer James Edwards just released an article today for The Athletic talking about it's time for us to stop acting surprised when Killian plays like this. We need to just accept that this is who he is. And that's a cool point that we've gotten to with him. He had 25 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds. I think you could make an argument that he might have been the best all-around player on the floor for both teams last night. And like you said, Alec Burks just continues to be a big spark off the bench for the Pistons. There was a point in this season when the Pistons bench was just horrific. Couldn't have any scoring at all. and now it's like a strength for theirs. I believe they had, if I remember correctly, 55 points coming off their bench last night. Alec Burks had 27. Kevin Knox, Kevin Knox, another player who's played really well, 17 points. Just all around, I feel like, tell me if you agree or not, but I feel like every player, except Kojo, who had a really, really rough night yesterday, I feel like every player contributed to this win in some way or form. Every player had their imprint on this win.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, the one player who played over 30 minutes who didn't score in double figures was Jalen Duren. He only had 7 points, but he was a monster on the boards. He got a career high 19. And he doesn't look like a rookie. It's so interesting. He's 19 years old. He's 6'10". He has that large body frame, but he's not playing like a rookie out there. He's definitely a little raw offensively, but that'll come in time. But he's a beast on the boards and on defense. So I think it's so funny. I think Kevin Knox was probably the biggest surprise last night, and he appears to be getting more comfortable, more settled in, especially since the West Coast trip. I think it was that game against, I forgot which game it was, but
I believe it was the Kings.
The Kings, yeah, Sacramento. So ever since that game, I think he's been more settled in, and especially from those catch and shoot opportunities from three-point range, particularly on those corners. I think if and defensively, he had 2 blocks yesterday, and if he's able to kind of serve as that two-way player off the bench, I think that'll bode well for him.
I mean, there's so many different ways we can go with this because like I said, there was just so many players that played well yesterday. But I'm glad you brought up Kevin Knox because I actually want to talk about Kevin Knox in this opening segment because we're going to talk about Killian Hayes and Isaiah Stewart later on in the podcast. So I'm happy you brought up Kevin Knox, and also I want to talk about Jalen Duren a little bit too. But Kevin Knox, you mentioned it. He's hitting outside jumpers, which is his archetype has always been a big, lengthy wing who can hit outside shots, except so far into his career, he wasn't actually hitting outside shots. This year for the Pistons, he actually is the archetype that he was billed to be coming into the draft. I believe he's shooting like 47% over like last 10 games or something. Like, it's crazy. And then, like you mentioned, I mean, we talked about this a little bit during the watch party yesterday, which all of you guys listening and watching, if you guys want to be a part of the next watch party, I'll have that link in the description down below. It's playback.tv/Pistons Watch. We have a lot of fun with host of the Pistons Pulse podcast, Bryce Simon. We're having some guests on. It's a real fun time, so check that out if you want to be a part of it. But we were talking about not the podcast, but the watch party yesterday. There was multiple plays where I thought Kevin Knox, there was a chance he might close that game yesterday because he was playing deep into the fourth, and they were riding him because I believe didn't they bring Knox in for Ivy at one point in overtime, didn't they, or at the end of the fourth, I believe?
Yeah, that's true.
So and once they did that defensively, they were switching a bunch of staggered screens, and they execute it perfectly. Even on the final defensive play for the Pistons in regulation, they execute the switches across the board. And Kevin Knox was the one who had to watch the switch to Rozier, who got a decent look in the corner, I suppose, but he still got contested up and switched well. He could have got even more open looks. So it's not just Knox offensively. The fact that Knox has been, throughout his career, he was a really bad defender for New York. But here in Detroit, he's engaged. I wouldn't say he's like some all-world defender, but he's an engaged, active one. And that, combined with three-point shooting, is big time for this team, especially at his size, length, and athleticism, too. He's been really fantastic for the Pistons.
Yeah, I think that's his calling card, and that's how he knows he's going to earn his minutes and time on the floor. If he's able to go out there and defend at a high level and knock down open shots, because he's gonna get them when Ivy drives into the hole. When pretty much anyone who's creating on offense is driving to the hole and kicking it out, he's gonna have those opportunities. Especially Bojan Bogdanovic, he's attracting a lot of attention from defenses to the point where they're doubling him, and someone's going to be open. And 9 times out of 10, it's usually Kevin Knox.
Right. Completely agree with that. We're going to move on to the second segment, but I want to talk about Jalen Duren just real quick. I'm just going to give a quick note here. Mike, I'm sure that you might have been the person that even asked Dwayne Casey this question a few games ago. I don't know, but I'm sure you were there. When Dwayne Casey was asked about It was when they were still starting Stu and Bagley, and they won the rebounding battle for like I think it was the only time they won the rebounding battle between those two. And Dwayne Casey was asked about it, and he said, "We're starting two bigs for a reason. If we're not going to win the rebounding battle and dominate the paint, I think the joke he said was, I might as well start Corey Joseph out there." And the Pistons were losing a ton of rebounding battles with those two, and you started to see Casey start to close with Jalen Duren. He started to play Duren more minutes than Bagley over the few games. It started to trend towards that way, and then Duren's been elevated to the starting lineup, and since then they haven't lost the rebounding battle. And like you mentioned, he had 19 yesterday. He almost had a 20 rebound game. So like he is raw offensively a little bit. He doesn't have like a complete offensive game. He's 18 years old, 19 years old, but like already what the Pistons need from him to be like their only actual big, he's been executing that perfectly for them, and he's already made a big difference as a guy who's 19 and extremely raw. I'm sure you've really liked what you've seen from Duren.
Yeah, absolutely. He's everything you want in the center right now at this stage and level of his career. Like, he brings the high energy plays. Like, every time he dunks the ball, I think it energizes the Pistons because he's either catching a lob, he's either grabbing an offensive rebound and putting it back. He had a really clutch block last night when the Pistons were up 4 late.
That two-hand swat.
Yeah. And then he's also contesting shots. Even though he's not blocking them, he's contesting them at just by putting his hands up. He's not like, I think it's like the Luke Cornett contest, which is really interesting. So he's playing at a really high level right now. And I think as long as he continues to do that, the Pistons will be just fine.
Right, man. I before the season, people like myself thought there was a chance he could even be in the G League to start the year because of how young he was and how crowded the front court was. And now he's starting already. It's crazy to look at it, man. But when we come back, I want to talk to Mike about Cade Cunningham's entire situation with decision to get surgery, what led up into that process. We're going to talk with him a little bit about that when we come back. But first, I got to tell you guys about a little bit of a message from the NHTSA. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many, and as the evening comes to an end, people start to head out. You think about calling for a ride. Now you live nearby. You can make it home. Okay, it's no big deal. Where are the odds you'll get pulled over anyways? And even so, what's the worst that could possibly happen? Your insurance goes up. You lose your license. You lose your job, whatever. You tow your car, okay. Or you could possibly kill someone. Everyone knows about the risk of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe, plan ahead to get a ride, and it only takes one mistake to change your life and someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. And now I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, PrizePicks. So PrizePicks is my favorite daily fantasy option out there. So I've been using it almost every single day now. And the best description I have for it is, let's go ahead and just give you an example. Let's say the Pistons are playing tonight and you got football playing the same night. So let's say I want to take the over on Jared Goff's passing yards. I can take the over on DeAndre Swift's rushing yards. But I can also take the over on Killian Hayes' points. I can take the under on, maybe Isaiah Stewart's rebounds. Like, I can do all that. I can put it into the exact same entry just like that. So easy. You pick 2 to 6 players to see if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, and you can win up 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Oh my God, that was a mouthful. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks gives you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks gives you $50. It's just that easy. Pretty simple. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for that instant deposit match up to $100 at PrizePicks.com or in the PrizePicks app. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. So, Mike, I want to thank you again, I should say, for coming on the podcast, man. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons the first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this on. Both great ways to support the podcast. All right, Mike. So I want to kind of get into this. I know we've already, the official decision has already been made. And I guess we're kind of moving on now from this whole situation. And, with Cade Cunningham, we're kind of, you want to look forward if you're a fan of the team. You don't want to just sit around sad about whatever. But it is a little bit recent still. So I just want to get your thoughts on, I guess we'll start with, do you have any details? I'm sure you've written about it a little bit already too. Maybe everyone listening hasn't read all your stuff yet, but what went into the process of Cade Cunningham figuring out, okay, my shin's actually pretty messed up. I need to sit out. And also, okay, what do we need to do? Should I just do rest? Oh, it's pretty bad enough. Should I consider surgery? Just what all went into that? The Pistons front office? Was it Cade's family, Cade's friends? Did Cade realize it himself? Like, what all went into it that you know of?
Yeah, it was a pretty lengthy process for over the past month. From what I was told, this is a injury in his left shin that he'd been dealing with on and off, at least since the preseason, and it may have been even before that. But it's been an ongoing issue with Cade, and he initially wanted to. He was deliberating between rest and obviously surgery. He didn't want to get the surgery, just because surgery can be an invasive process, and you rather let something heal on its own if you can. So that's pretty much why he took the last month to kind of rest to see how it would feel if the inflammation would go down. But it turns out that the cause of the pain was a hairline stress fracture, and pretty much he had to come down to he and the Pistons together. Dwayne Casey said it was definitely Cade's decision, but they basically came together and said, hey, this is going to be best for your long-term future. We don't want this thing to linger for the next few years. And the sooner he got it taken care of, the better off he would be. He'll be able to make a full recovery by next season. So he's going to be out for the rest of the season, and it's definitely a blow to the Pistons, but I think there's a silver lining in there because it opens up opportunities for Killian Hayes and Jaden Ivey to kind of shoulder some of that burden just by being the primary facilitators and ball handlers for the Pistons right now. But it's kind of bittersweet because Cade was definitely going to be. I think he was on pace to have an even better year than he did last year, which almost resulted in the Rookie of the Year. So, that's pretty much where we're at with the Cade Cunningham situation.
So I want to ask you a question, and I don't know how much you can shed light on this. I don't know how much you know. I don't know, and if you can't answer, perfectly fine to say. That's outside of my possibility to answer. But
yeah.
So we got some reports 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, that the Pistons were kind of pushing Cade into you should get surgery, and with the thought of Victor Wembanyama in mind in the offseason, because obviously Victor Wembanyama is this prized possession that literally every team seems like they want Victor. He looks like he might be the best prospect we've ever seen. Not to say I don't think the point of the question is not. I don't believe the Pistons would force something on the Cade just for Victor, but there's two ways I want to go with the question. One, how much of that do you think actually played a factor into the decision here? And two, like you said, it makes sense. Cade doesn't want to get the surgery. He's a competitive guy. He wants to be out there. He just spent the whole offseason working, putting on that strength. He wants to be out there with those guys. And he wants to be playing basketball. I know this was Cade's decision, but how much of that also do you think played, you got to kind of save the player from himself. They talk about that a lot with like coaches, and the player is always going to want to play through something, but it may not be best for their long-term health. You see a lot of times when guys get like rest days, whatever, and they miss a game, whatever. How much of that played into it? And also how much did the reports that Victor Wembanyama, the chances to get him, obviously without Cade, the team, you don't think the team's going to be as good without Cade, obviously. How much of both those things played a part, if any of them played a part in this?
Yeah, I don't want to speak too much into the Victor thing just because I'm not aware. I don't know pretty much how that conversation went. But I think it is a byproduct of, hey, your best player is going to be out. We're already a quarter of the season into a quarter into the season, and they already have the worst record in the league. So if things continue as they're going right now, then they're going to be in the lottery. They're going to be in a hunt for another pick, and Victor could be on his way to Detroit if the balls bounce that way. So I think it is a silver lining in that way. But as far as like saving Cade from himself, I think you definitely got to factor in just because, like you said, he's so competitive. He wants to be out there. He wants to play, but he's not going to be as effective if he's playing hurt. So I think they definitely had to just show him that the sooner you get this taken care of, the better you'll be in the long term.
So, and just for all you guys listening, if you guys missed the last episode, like I said, I had my friend Sham on, who's been in the medical field. He's been one of like if something happens injury-wise to anybody in the Pistons community, like the past 5 or 6 years, he's been the guy everyone goes to. He broke down some of the injuries with Reggie Jackson over the years with his knees. When Andre Drummond had that nasal surgery, he broke that down. So we had him on the podcast last episode. And also James Edwards, I bring him up again, of The Athletic. He had a doctor, I believe his name was Dr. Choma, I believe it was. But they basically talked about, for a guy that young, surgery seems to be like the best route to go. He has the best chance to, he has a good chance of recovering completely fine. And I think something that, a lot of people haven't talked about as much is that there's a player on the team right now who had this exact same surgery and came back. I think Rodney McGrew is the only one who came back in the same season he got the surgery from. He was the only one who actually did come back in the season. So he has someone on the team I'm sure he talked with and asked him about the surgery, the process, what happens after, like all that stuff. So I'm sure he feels a lot more comfortable now after talking with his friends, his family, the front office, and having someone on the team like that. I guess there is a good thing that came out of the Bull trade that did not happen. But either way, Cade's going to be out for the year, but I just wanted to touch on that subject real quick with Mike before we officially on the Locked On Pistons podcast. I'm telling you guys right now, we're going to be putting Cade's injury in the past now. We are not going to be sitting around crying about it any longer. This is the last time we will be dissecting this situation, and hopefully Cade comes back completely 100%. We can't wait to see him next year with a hopefully new and improved squad. When we come back, hopefully players that will be a part of that, or maybe one of them at least, I'm not going to spoil it, but maybe one of them gets used for a trade in the offseason. But hopefully some of these guys that we're going to talk about later on will be a part of that new improved team that Cade Cunningham comes back to, and that is Killian Hayes and Isaiah Stewart. We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the World Cup, they've got it all covered at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts too, you can find those over at BetOnline.net as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about their trends in action today. And if you head over to BetOnline.net, you click on that basketball tab, they got all the best odds for MVP, championship odds this year, rookie of the year, sixth man of the year, head coach, who's going to finish with the worst odds and possibly have the chance to go after Victor Wembanyama. They have all of that over there at BetOnline.net. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about their trends in action today. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so Mike, I don't know. I mean, we follow each other on Twitter, so I'm sure you may have seen some of my tweets about it. I'm not sure if you know completely though, but don't let the Stafford jersey in the back fool you. There should be a different jersey right there. We just haven't gotten it yet. We haven't gotten it yet. I thought the wife was going to get it for my birthday last week. She didn't do it. Hey, that's on her. But there should be a Killian Hayes jersey back there because I am one of the biggest Killian Hayes believers. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a big Killian Hayes.
I've noticed.
I'm a big Killian Hayes believer. And the beginning of the season, it was rough. It was rough. It got so rough that I had to take Killian Hayes believer out of my Twitter bio because it had gotten so bad that if I continued to voice that publicly, I would have looked like a lunatic. But he's completely turned it around over the past, it's almost 20 games now? It might be already.
Yeah.
Played really well this past game against the Hornets, but just multiple performances lately where he's just been, like we said earlier, that could be his best game of the year, just back to back. It just keeps happening. I want to talk about Isaiah Stewart too, who's also having a really good season and has improved from outside. We even seen him start to put the ball on the deck and get to the basket. We're starting to see all kinds of stuff from him. So we're going to talk about both those guys. But first, obviously, just what have you seen from Killian Hayes on the court? And also, I want to ask you off the court too. And before you answer that question, I just want to say that, and tell me if you agree with me or not. I know you weren't here last year for the Pistons because you just took over for Rod, but obviously Killian's dealt with confidence issues. A lot of people think that's where his biggest weakness was, dealing with confidence. And heading into this season, I said on the podcast, he sounded like a completely different dude. He sounded like someone who's really confident and was carrying himself with like a level of confidence and swagger about himself that he didn't have previously. And I said that he sounded like a different dude and sounded like he knew that he needed to gain some confidence, whether he went, I don't know how he went about it, but he feels like a much more confident player, not just on the court, but off the court. He feels like he's a really confident dude now. Do you get that sense with him when you guys interview him in the locker rooms after the games, just being around the team? Does it seem like he's a much more confident guy? And also, just what do you make of his play as of late?
Yeah, I definitely get that sense. And I think that's where it starts. He's way more confident just with his play and like the way he's carrying himself, like you said, in interviews and things of that nature. I think he's more aggressive and looking for a shot, especially that mid-range pull-up. And then you see it when in games like the overtime game against Dallas and then last night's game where he's hitting these clutch threes back to back. And I think those are like the next step in his evolution where he's able to kind of take and make those shots. Killian's playing at like an all-time high level for him. He's averaging 34% from three, which is a career high for him. And it's paying off well for a guy who was the number 7 pick in the 2020 draft. I think for the longest, he's had to kind of live up to where he was drafted, and he kind of didn't have the opportunity to, just because it was a COVID season and there was a lot of delay and lag with his development, just because that wasn't your typical season where he was able to kind of come in and get those reps right off the bat. So I think we're starting to see like the potential of the player that he could actually be this season.
And just again, I'm going to point this out. He is only 122 games into his season, so technically, games wise, this is really like his second year that he's games worth that he's played. We're going to move on to Isaiah Stewart, but I just want to give some context to what we were talking about right there. So the past 20 games for Killian Hayes. So if you remove the 10 games that were just horrific for him, just one of the worst starts to a season I think any of us have ever seen. The last 20 games, he's shooting 43% from the field, 38% from deep on 4 attempts a game. He's averaging 11.7 points and 6.3 assists, along with 3.2 rebounds, 1.3 steals, and only 1.9 turnovers. If you even go to the last 10 games where he's really turned it on, he's averaging 13.7 points a game, 7.7 assists to 2 turnovers, 3.6 rebounds. He's shooting 45% from the field and 38% from deep on 5 attempts from deep. So he's playing really well. And like James said in his athletic article today, this seems like the player he is now. Maybe we need to stop being so excited all the time when he plays well. This is just who he is now. He's been doing it now for 20 games, and it's great to see that. Isaiah Stewart, though. Isaiah Stewart, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Mike. I was not the biggest believer about him becoming this lights-out three-point shooter before the year. He hadn't shot many 2 years into his career. He had stretches where he shot a lot, or shot like at the end of the year, he'd shoot like 3 or 4 a game. He'd shoot well on them. But over the sample size of 2 years, he just hadn't shot that many threes. So I didn't think the likelihood of him coming to the season being one of, a 37 above average three-point shooter from beyond the arc was realistic. I thought you'd see him around 32, 33%. and you see him start to get a little bit better as the season goes on. But man, he's completely proved me wrong in that regard. He's just right out the gate. He's been I don't want to say a sniper, but he's shooting it much better than I thought he was on decent volume too. He's shooting 37% on 4.2 attempts a game. He's averaging the most points in his career, 12 points. He's playing really well. And like I said, this past game against the Hornets, you even saw him put the ball on the ground a little bit. What do you like about what you've seen from Isaiah Stewart? And also, we know that Isaiah Stewart's a confident dude. He's very demonstrative with his confidence on the court. But just how do you feel like he's been carrying himself around the locker room? Does he feel like a guy that you see the like, I'm making shots? Is that like oozing off of him? Like, yeah, I'm that now. I can hit threes. Like, is that oozing off of him? And also, just what have you made of his play on the court?
Yeah, well, we talked to him today, and he was definitely more in a positive and a happier mood than just in recent games, just because they were doing a lot of losing towards the beginning of the season. But the mood is definitely improved. I think the confidence is there. Like you said, he's putting the ball on the floor. I think that's been my biggest surprise. I think I expected him to kind of make the shots. Like you said, he's making 37% of his 3-pointers on 4 attempts. And you pretty much got to expect that he's going to make those, especially when the defense starts to kind of run him off the line. What's he going to be able to do then? And you see he's been able to kind of get to the hole. He had a weird finger roll the other night.
Like a Harlem Globetrotter kind of thing. He looked like he was about to fake a pass and like
Yeah. So he's been able to make shots like that. He got a poster dunk last night. He's been able to do a little bit of everything. So I think that's been a big key for Isaiah Stewart. I think defense is still his calling card. He told us today he still loves to play defense. So as long as he continues that two-way player archetype or build that he's starting to become, I think it'll bode well for the Pistons. And just like putting him alongside Duren, I think that was the biggest thing, because they're able to play off each other, because Isaiah is able to kind of be on the perimeter while Duren takes up most of the space in the paint. So yeah, go ahead.
I was just about to ask you just about that, because the idea behind starting Bagley and Stu was that was kind of like the same idea of, okay, well, Bagley can't really do the big man stuff down low. He can score offensively down low, but defensively he's not so much like a 5. He can't do that big time or big guy stuff. Stu can on the defensive end, but I feel like what you saw more of as they started playing together is more like, yeah, if you fuse these two players into one, you'd have a heck of a player. But together, Stu isn't like fantastic enough to make up for all of Bagley's faults, and Bagley just isn't. He's in like this tweener role of like a 4 and a 5 defensively. And when you have Stu and Duren now, Duren I would say is the only legit big on their team. Like Bagley's a little height wise, he's not undersized, but he's not some big dude or anything. Stu's big, but he's not very tall and he's limited athletically. Duren is strong as hell. He's big as hell. He's athletic as hell. Long arms. Like, he's their one actual big. So now putting him with Stu, it's kind of taking some of the pressure off of Stu defensively, even though it doesn't mean he's not playing defense. It's kind of taking off the pressure he had defensively. We saw Stu get into it with some teammates throughout the year because they didn't help him on the glass when he would rotate and switch out on the perimeter. Now he doesn't have to worry about that. Duren kind of just helps Stu, it feels like, play a lot better and feel more relaxed while he's out there. And they seem like they fit really well together. I'm assuming you agree.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of the two big lineup. And understand, it wouldn't work if Stewart wasn't knocking down shots. Like, right. there would be no point to it. And you would probably have to start Bogey at the 4, which I think they were doing earlier in the year or when the preseason had started. But yeah, they play really well together. And you can tell that they like really enjoy being around each other. We see them all the time at practice, just joking around and getting in shooting competitions, playing one-on-one. Like, they have really good chemistry together.
So we're at 35 minutes now. We're going to wrap this up, but I have to ask you one final thing. And this is another one of those questions that you may just have to plead the fifth on, but I have to ask it. I have to ask it anyways. We have some reports lately that say I think it comes from James Edwards again. We've mentioned him like 3 times already. He's had a few articles lately, but that Saddiq Bey is gettable from the Detroit Pistons. What do you think? I don't know if you've been told anything, if you can even share what you've been told, but if you had to, we're going to put you on the spot. And I used to do this. I do this a lot to Rod too. So don't feel like I'm picking on you or anything, but I'm putting you on the spot. If you had to put percentage-wise, if you had to put your money on it, percentage-wise, likelihood that Saddiq Bey actually does get traded this season.
I don't know anything. Let me preface my answer with that. But if I had to put a percentage on it based on just how the team is structured and how everyone's playing, I think Saddiq is the one player who could find himself moved at some point this season. I'll go 35, 40%.
Okay. Yeah. 35, 40, that's higher than I thought you'd give us. I thought you'd play it safe and just give us the whole, no, he's a young guy, they'll keep him 5%, but it's always a possibility. He's like,
yeah,
play both sides.
You never know, especially with Troy Weaver. Like,
oh yeah, exactly.
He's able to work magic, so.
Fair enough. So I like the answer. 35%. I didn't think you would get that risky with it, but fair enough. All right. So appreciate you though, Mike, coming on, man. You guys can go check out Mike on Twitter at Mike A. Curtis 2. Obviously, you can find all his work at the Detroit News. Again, I want to thank you, Mike, for coming on. We're going to try to get you on again in the future too. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. Hopefully you have some more fun games to watch, like the game against the Hornets. Maybe a little bit more defense play. Maybe not just no defense, but just some more entertaining games. There have been some rough games as of late. So I know I was credentialed 1 year for 1920. I wasn't some beat writer. I was credentialed for that year though, and even going to the same game, all the home games, and for a team that was not very good, even that was just like I was like, oh, gotta go to that game. But I can only imagine for you guys having to write articles after every single game, being every game, interviewing players who are probably pissed off after every game. Like I know how it can get. So hopefully you guys have some fun games, and the season kind of goes fun for you guys. So outside of that, thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on, or head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. Also, if you guys want to be a part of the watch parties live with me and Bryce Simon, host of the Pistons Pulse podcast, go in the description down below, or you can just type in playback.tv/Pistons watch. Go ahead and sub to the room. It's a lot of fun during the games. But until next time, had a lot of fun recording this episode. I'll see you guys later. Stay safe. Go Pistons. And peace out, everybody.